Why are people saying a new row will be disastrous for Prince Harry? What happened during Catherine's year off? Is Prince William about to change the rules on foreign trips? And why is Meghan being criticised for her new commercial move? We have a brilliant show coming up. Hello and welcome to Palace Confidential. I'm Jo Elvin, and on today's panel is the Daily Mail's royal editor, Rebecca English, the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large, Charlotte Griffiths, and the Mail's diary editor, Richard Eden. Welcome to you all. Now, more than 400,000 of you subscribe to this channel. And if you don't, why the heck not? It doesn't cost you anything, but it does guarantee you're notified whenever we put out a new show. For instance, earlier this week we put out an extended version of the video where Rebecca went inside Kensington Palace for a special lesson on royal clothing. Now, we know you won't want to miss that, so it will play straight after this episode when we've finished here. Next week, keep an eye out for a special video where royal biographer Robert Hardman answers all your questions about King Charles. Right, now, as promised, boy, is there a lot to get through today, so let's get to it. Rebecca, I'm going to start with you. You wrote a very popular piece, an interesting piece, I should say, about Catherine's year out of the spotlight, and as she was being treated for cancer, obviously. Can you tell us a little bit about what you found about that year?
I just thought, because it was on Saturday, was a year, can you believe it, since she released that incredibly unprecedented and very moving video, revealing to the public that she had cancer and was receiving preventative chemotherapy. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to look back at really how that video came about and how things are for them now. And I think what was really struck me is how personal a project that was to her. That, you know, there were so few people within that circle of trust at Kensington Palace. I mean, barely anybody. And it was very much her idea. You know, she was in charge of the video, where it was shot. There were 371 words I counted in her address, and every one of them was written by herself. And a fascinating aspect that I hadn't realised is that she felt that because it was such a personal piece of news, she really was the one that wanted to impart it to people. But also there was a kind of added complication. If you remember, there was a lot of disinformation around at the time.
A lot of jokes, which is just hideous.
Some pretty nasty speculation, but they were quite rattled when it emerged that a lot of this had been fueled by Russian governmental bots. There was some research on it. Yeah. And it was a big issue for the royal family, because obviously the royal family is a very unifying factor for this country normally, but a foreign entity was actually trying to use it to create disharmony. And it was part of their thinking, but by no means the main piece of their thinking, that actually the best way to stop this dead in its tracks was for it to come from her. The happier news is that she's in a good place, you know, still being outdoors a lot with her kids, you know, she's going to the gym now, you know, eating very healthily. But again, it's been emphasised to me that really what I said towards the end of last year, slow and steady. There's no great, you know, turning from what they've already said, is that she's going to pick up her engagements diary, you know, quite slowly. So, you know, expect more of the same over the coming months.
Interesting. Well, we will put a link to that piece in the description below if you missed that one and you want to catch up. Richard, what about you? How do you think Catherine has handled that transition from diagnosis to returning to royal duties?
I think it has been really hard, and of course the most important thing is her health. So I think everyone understands that the transition has to combine not pushing herself too hard, but still managing to do some work, which we've seen so far with the engagements, which I think have attracted even more attention than normal because they're, you know, a bit less frequent than before. But remember, this is someone who has a big job ahead. She will be our queen eventually. And so, you know, we want her to be as healthy as possible and to raise the children and raise the future king. You know,
Indeed.
So she's got a big job, and I think she's handling it well, and I think she has the understanding of the public in general.
And I think there's always, you can well understand people wanting to get back to normality after. It's just such a, you know, it's a horrible thing to have to go through and to have to put your life on hold for. But Charlotte, do you think at some point there'll be a bit of a clamour for people to want to hear more about that transition and that year in Catherine's own words?
I think so. I think people would love to know exactly what she went through, and she has hinted at the Royal Marsden hospital visit that she did. She's hinted a little bit about what she went through, but a bit like you were saying, she probably wants to move on. So I can't see a world in which she'll continue talking about that experience in the future. I think sort of now is the time. But I also think that it would be really interesting to know if she's ready to share what the condition was that caused her to have the major abdominal surgery during which cancer was found. Because I think there'll be people out there who would really relate to her, you know, people that suffer from whatever the condition was. But it's so tricky, isn't it? Because she's intensely private, and you know, health is the biggest secret you can keep, and it's fair enough.
But I think what you touch on there is interesting, because there's the hint of the public service in maybe that was a condition that if you know about it, that it would lead to more diagnosis for more people.
Totally, and she will definitely want to help people in that journey, and we know that from that Royal Marsden visit, that she really wants to help other people that have suffered in the way she has. But it's taking that next step to say, by the way, this is what actually happened. Whether she'll make that leap, I don't know.
Who knows? Well, Rebecca, let's move on to Prince William. Now, last week I did promise our viewers that you would tell us more about your trip to Estonia with him. So what were your highlights from there, and how do you think he did?
Yeah, it was a great trip actually. It was only 2 days that 3 days including travel, but 2 days we were out there with him, and he was on really good form. And obviously, ostensibly, it was about him being there in his role as Colonel-in-Chief of the Mercians, who are about to take a 6-month deployment out there as part of a big NATO permanent exercise. But obviously it was a chance for him to meet the country's president, which he did, straight into a meeting a bilateral meeting, which I think shows his development on the international stage. I accompanied with him to a school, a Ukrainian freedom school, because Estonia have taken on proportionately a lot of Ukrainian refugees. And what was really interesting is they all said how aware they were of the royal family's support for their country, and talked about some of the king's words over the years. They were incredibly touched. There were some fun aspects of that. He was playing basketball at one point right in front of me, kind of ripped off his jacket and threw it to one side, which got a lot of traction on social media.
That's so interesting you say that, because I had a friend text me this morning to say, is it okay that she's developed a crush on Prince William?
Oh, really?
What do we think? I'd like to know what the viewers think, if that's okay.
Was that the
not.
moment they did it for her?
It may well have been, because this came up today. Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. There was another job where there were really big crowds, because obviously for security reasons they don't announce where he's going in advance. But a pretty big crowd, word had got round, pretty big crowd had arrived. And what was really noticeable of that, he spent about half an hour, 40 minutes doing this walkabout, up, down, and not just posing for selfies, taking the selfies. And I think once he'd done one, he felt it seemed a bit, he started saying no, but then he felt it would be a bit rude. So he literally had to do every selfie.
So he's still there.
Up and down the crowd. And people were responding brilliantly to it, although at one point he kind of held up this phone and something dropped off the back of it, and you could hear the whole crowd go Turns out it wasn't the phone he dropped. I think it was like a charger or something off the back of it. And then the next day was all about the military manoeuvres. Now it was a really definite picture they wanted to put out. It was no accident that William was in his camos. He was pillion in a Challenger tank with his head popping out the turret. He got to drive one of these Archer military vehicles as well. And there was a very strong message here, which was, I am 90 miles from the Russian border with Estonia. I'm in Putin's backyard and I'm supporting our military. And I think we often talk about the royal family's power of soft diplomacy, and we were really seeing this in action. This was William saying, I am 90 miles from the border with Russia, I am in Putin's backyard, I'm here supporting our British military and NATO, and this is a very definite message I want to send out.
I mean, that's sounding more like hard diplomacy to me. Richard, how do you think that image was affecting governments around the world?
Well, I think certainly it will have been heard, and that's the whole point of sending Prince William there, is it means it gets that coverage. It's our government, it's Britain saying, we think this is important, and it gets the coverage. I mean, normally, troop movements in Estonia are not going to get any coverage in the media. So that really gets the message across and hopefully helps Estonia.
Now, Rebecca, there was a report afterwards, after this trip, that William and Catherine may not be undertaking the sort of like the longer extended tours that the older generations did in the royal family. Is that right?
Well, it's true, but I don't think that will be any surprise to people who follow the royals, because we've been writing about that for years. Basically, they made really clear. I mean, gosh, when the children were much younger, George and Charlotte, that they just didn't want to follow that model of a big 2 weeks away from home, especially when they started school. So they wanted to do these trips. I remember writing a piece, I think back in 2018, saying that they were leaving on a Monday when we went to Pakistan, 2019, leaving on a Monday and getting back in time to pick them up from school on the Friday. I mean, I'm all here for that. Anything that's a slightly more family-friendly working hours.
Well, that's great for all the working parents on the royal tour as well,
exactly.
Isn't it?
That definitely works for me, and I think that's probably right. I mean, I think we obviously all memorably talk about Queen Elizabeth having to go away for 6 months on her big Commonwealth tour and leaving Prince Charles and Princess Anne as young children. I think we can all acknowledge that was maybe a right thing at the time, but probably not appropriate nowadays.
How do you think that'll go down, Charlotte? I feel like some people might think it's a shame.
Some people think it's a shame, but I disagree. I think it's more likely we'll see William and Catherine on royal tours if they can do them really quickly.
Right.
For example, if they were, say, planning an Australia tour, in years gone by, they might say, oh, we can't do that until the kids are, all 11 and plus, or, for example. But now, I realise Australia's a long way away, but now they can do a short, sharp tour. And as Rebecca said, he was taking selfies for 40 minutes. Those selfies will have been on the internet 5 seconds after they were taken. The impact is actually very, very rapid in this day and age with 24/7 coverage. So why should they? And I think it means we'll actually get to see them abroad. So if that's the quid pro quo, I'm also here for it.
Do you think the Aussies are happy with a 2-day tour to Australia, Richard?
Yes, I mean, that's when it does become difficult. So obviously you can do it to Estonia or in Europe, but when it's to, other parts of the world that also have our king as monarch, such as Australia or Canada, the people there, I'm sure, would like to see them for longer, and you won't be able to just go for 2 days. So it will require a bit more effort, a bit more planning. Yes, it won't be the 6-month tour of the Commonwealth, but they may be going for a week, and I'm sure that's on the agenda as well.
And I think that's when they will try to take the children with them, because Catherine said the other day on an engagement that or St Patrick's Day, that she was very keen to be able to take the children away, because Prince George found it fascinating that he'd been to Australia and New Zealand as a baby and obviously didn't remember it. So I think actually as the children get a little bit older, a little bit more manageable, I suspect those kind of trips might be something they try to work around the school holidays as well.
Lucky
Should
kids.
be great.
Yeah, amazing. Now, Rebecca, William's favourite emoji came up again. We're just going to have a quick look at this clip.
How are you? It was. You mentioned the aubergine emoji was your favourite.
It felt like the environment to do it. Not for today, maybe aubergine. And now
that was the Radio 1 capacity, but yeah, today is a very different setting.
What can you tell us about this one? Why, pray tell, does William love the aubergine?
Thank you for asking me, out of anyone on the panel, this, Jo.
Palace Confidential is here for the important issues, and you are the woman with the answers.
I'm also the woman trying to keep a straight face as well. So I won't explain to our viewers what the aubergine emoji is. If they don't know, as I'm sure my parents don't know, they can probably look it up and find out.
I don't know what you're implying about our wholesome viewership, but
it's a vegetable, but it's slightly fruity, shall we say?
Yeah.
And can I just say this was very tongue in cheek. So William last year appeared on.
That's an unfortunate phrase. Sorry.
So William last appeared. Right. So last year, William appeared on Radio 1, which is a youth radio channel in the UK, and he joked, I think, that he liked the aubergine emoji to kind of hang with the kids. And the same presenter met him at a farming event this week and reminded him of him. And actually, to be fair, William did say, I think I made the joke last year, I'm not sure this is the appropriate circumstances for it today, because actually it was a very serious conversation about mental health for young farmers. So.
Yeah.
But yes, I think it did. I think it will spark a lot of amusement.
No more hanging with the kids there. Now, you were back with Camilla this week too. Does she have a favourite emoji?
I'd love to know, actually. Well, she's more up on technology than you'd think. So I remember having an exclusive story during lockdown that she was on that kind of brief house party app with her family while she was in Scotland during lockdown, and the rest of her family were down in the south of England.
Oh my God,
so
the house party app.
Do you remember that?
Oh.
Yeah, it feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me, but I went to a genuinely brilliant engagement with her yesterday. It was and this is what I love about London. We have places like this. It's the Charles Dickens House Museum. So it's actually the house where he wrote A Christmas Carol in the 1830s. And it was saved from being demolished, and you can go and visit it. Trust me, if you ever come to London, it's brilliant. It's small, but it's brilliant. And she went, and there were readings with Miriam Margolyes and Simon Callow, and she was just in her element. And actually, Miriam Margolyes, who is an actress who does not pull her punches,
But she's a Dickens genius.
She's a Dickens genius.
Yeah.
I wondered where you were going to go there with that after your previous comment, Jo. She said to me afterwards, she just looked at me, and she's a woman that will call a spade a spade. And
Oh, yes.
she looked and went, "Isn't she marvellous? Like, we're really lucky to have her." She said, "I was genuinely blown away by her knowledge and her enthusiasm."
I can't believe you said blown away. You've done it to me again.
Jo, stop it.
Miriam Margolyes is a famous sort of like openly brazen farter. Please tell me she kept it under control.
Well, I definitely didn't see any evidence of that, but then I wasn't really looking for it.
And then you can't sue me for that because I've seen it. It's
Oh,
true.
really? Well, our matters were on more highbrow.
Good.
issues
I'm very
today.
pleased to hear it. On to more serious matters now, Richard. Prince Andrew, and I can't believe this is actually even possible, but apparently potentially set for more embarrassment next month. What can you tell us?
Yes, no jokes on this one. It's pretty serious. It's that case of the alleged spy, the alleged Chinese spy, who, of course, denies he was a spy, but it was all about banning him from the country. And what has happened now is that a tribunal has decided, judges have decided that details of a letter, a plea, an email by Prince Andrew's aide, Dominic Hampshire, talking about why this alleged spy was actually an upstanding citizen who'd been very useful to the country. Details of this can now be published, and they will be next month. So it sounds like they could be excruciating, really, because it's going to be him talking about how this guy's wonderful and what he's done for Prince Andrew. So, obviously that's going to be quite interesting to read.
Eek. Rebecca, they have tried to draw lines under these things before, but things just keep... Well, they have a way of coming out, don't they?
Well, they particularly do when it comes to Prince Andrew, and I think it emphasised why Queen Elizabeth was right to take the action she did in effectively stripping him of his HRH and any public role, and why the King has been right to re-emphasise that and also try to find a way that his brother will downsize and have a more manageable lifestyle, so he doesn't get sucked into these kind of, costly financially, but also costly reputationally, business decisions.
I'm sure we will have more on that story as it develops, but let's have a look at some of your comments now, and we'll start with the extended version of Rebecca's visit inside Kensington Palace. And Vicky DeVersa says, "This was absolutely the best show on Palace Confidential yet. You did an amazing job, Rebecca, and you look lovely. I got such a good feeling watching the gentleman describe the fashions he exhibits. Such joy for his career. Loved it." Thank you. That's Matthew
Story.
He's so good, isn't he?
He's so knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And he's a lovely guy.
and lives and breathes it.
Yeah,
I really
does.
felt that
Thank
from
you
him.
for those kind words.
While Fact Check writes, question about Meghan Markle's new business venture with Shop My Closet. If she's selling items under the name Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, isn't she breaking the rule about the British royal family using their titles for financial gain? I'm from the US, so is there an actual rule or law? Rebecca, do you have an answer?
It's a good question, and the answer is is no, there isn't. We're quite funny in this country. We don't have a written constitution, we have an unwritten constitution. And a lot of it's the same when it comes to the royal family.
Aren't we cute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're eccentric, we are. We like things a different way. And it's things that are, I suppose, ways of doing things, also involving letters patent, which is kind of expression of wishes from the monarch about how things are done. But yes, it is very much frowned upon to cash in on your royal connections. And we've seen many members of the royal family fall foul over this over the years. And most of them have kind of taken their medicine, they've taken their punishment and got their head down and got on with royal duties. Now, the Meghan question is quite interesting, and I think there's a lot of people who feel she is sailing very, very close to the wind on this in terms of merchandising underneath her full title, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. The trouble is, I'm not sure the King can take any action over it because, of course, their relationship is non-existent. Her and Harry have already been told they can't use their titles, and I'm not sure, even if he was to try and lay down the law, they would even listen to him. So I'm not sure there's a lot he can do about it.
One minute Meghan's insisting on being described as Meghan Sussex in her programme, and the next minute when she's selling things, it's Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. I think it's really telling.
On the back of all the, well, I don't really care about the royal titles anyway.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, that didn't answer that one, but we tried. We tried. Well, to last week's fascinating episode of Palace Confidential with the two Richards, and here's a lovely comment from Fred Porlock. Dearest Rebecca, my daughter arrived in Estonia on the 18th of March, beginning a 6-month deployment as a US soldier. Wow, we were thrilled to hear Prince William would be in the country a couple of days later, but we were especially excited and oddly comforted to know the lovely Rebecca English would be in the country as well. We prayed for the safety of all. Regards from Indiana, USA. Oh, that's lovely. Rebecca, I understand you actually met quite a few Palace fans while you were in the Baltics.
Yeah, it never ceases to amaze me the reach of the programme. I'm delighted, but I just didn't expect it in the Baltics. But I'm standing outside the presidential palace in Tallinn, which is the capital of Estonia, and one of my colleagues had gone to interview people in the crowd, and she came back and I said, well, actually, this lady doesn't want to talk to me. She wants to talk to you because she loves Palace Confidential, and she's from Latvia.
We love to hear that.
And she's flown all the way to Estonia because she wanted to be part of the royal visit. So I kind of went over quickly and said hello, but then William was about to arrive. But
you'll have your own With Love Rebecca merch soon, before we know it.
I don't think she recognised me because it was so cold. I had like my kind of dog walking jacket basically up to my nose, and no one could actually see me. But I just want to say thank you for coming to say hello, and if you ever see us on Royal Jobs, do, because it's always really nice to hear
Amazing.
from you.
We love to hear that.
And she did tell me, Joe, you'll be particularly pleased to hear this, that she subscribed to the programme 100,000 subscribers and is very delighted we're now on over 400,000.
Oh, I love that. I love that my requesting does work.
It does.
It does. Well, this one came from Josh Alec, who writes, my family comes from Belarus, and I hope that when democracy comes to Belarus not so long after, so will a royal visit. Also, I wish you had mentioned how Prince Edward was offered to become King of Estonia. Richard, eh?
Well, when Estonia, like the other Baltic countries, gained its independence from the Soviet Union, it became a republic. But there are monarchists, just like there are in Belarus, by the sounds of it. And they actually like the idea of having a monarchy. They've seen that, you know, in various countries, like I would say in Britain, it helps give the country maybe some security, some balance. And there was a real movement for a monarchy, and they thought, well, who can we get? So they made a polite request if they could have Prince Edward as their monarch. I think it was jokey. I think they weren't seriously expecting him to be handed over. But I think that the Buckingham Palace very politely said, Prince Edward's very flattered to be asked, but it won't quite be possible. Or maybe not yet anyway, but who knows?
Richard's available. You can do it, couldn't you? King Richard, whatever that one is.
Well, I'd need to be asked.
Yeah. Linda Van Cott had this to say about whether Prince Harry could be deported over what he said in his application for a US visa. She writes, despite being an American and a Trump supporter, and as someone wanting to know what Harry did or not in his application, I'm doubtful Trump will push too hard on this. He reveres and respects the British monarchy and people, and if pursuing this might hurt the King's son, despite how much that son hates Trump, I think Trump will want to back off and let Harry stay. Also sad, odd and preventable, if only Harry and Meghan had behaved with a bit of decorum. Right, well, please do keep those comments and questions coming in. We love them, we absolutely do. Now, let's get back to the panel, because we've still got tons to talk about, and we'll stick with the Duke of Sussex for now. Richard, there's been quite a major scandal about Prince Harry's charity, hasn't there? What can you tell us?
It really has. I mean, this is a big deal this week. You know, you think of since Prince Harry quit royal duties, what did he really value? What did he have left? And we had Invictus, the games for injured former service personnel, and then we had Sentebale, which he founded, way back, almost 20 years ago in 2006. And it was a charity to help, mainly it was orphans, children in Africa, particularly in Lesotho, who'd been orphaned by the AIDS crisis. So really close to his heart. Named Sentebale, which means forget-me-not, which forget-me-nots apparently were one of Princess Diana's favourite flowers. So really close to his heart. And what's happened this week is he's quit. He's resigned from his own charity, as well as his co-founder, Prince Seeiso, is that how it's pronounced? Seeiso of Lesotho, both of them, as well as many of the trustees. And it's all very murky, but essentially what it boils down to is a disagreement between them and the chairman of the charity, very eminent academic, Dr. Sophie Chandauka.
She's someone we've discussed before, isn't she?
She is, yeah. She's an interesting character, and she'd already been a trustee of the charity for 6 years, so she was known well to them. And it really has led to some terrible sort of back and forth between them, and goodness knows how it's going to end.
She did appear on the show, I believe.
Yes, I mean, we've talked about her. I remember being here last year discussing it with Charlotte, because there was a charity fundraising event for Sentebale. It was a polo match, which they've done every year. This one was in Miami. And it was a chance for Meghan to be involved. So when it came to the trophy presentation, Meghan was very keen to be there, but she seemed a bit put out by the boss of the charity. At the time, no one seemed to know it was her. They thought, oh, it was just one of those.
This now,
yeah, because she was dressed in a similar way to other women there. People thought maybe she was like a model, or she was someone involved in the polo. So they went up for the presentation, and Dr. Chandauka quite rightly thought, as the boss of as the chairman of the charity, I'll stand next to our patron, Prince Harry. No, Meghan did not agree with that. So she actually sort of moved her, and you saw this awkward situation where Dr. Chandauka had to literally duck under this big trophy to get moved into a different position so that Meghan could have prime position next to her husband. And I don't know what effect that had, but it did seem a bit indicative of other things going on at this charity.
Maybe. Well, Charlotte, Sophie Chandauka's response to the resignations could really be described as barbed, if we were being polite, couldn't it?
Well, it wasn't just barbed, it was cutting, there were razor blades throughout that statement. It went through systematically, and she's very articulate, this woman. She went to Oxford, she's got an amazing CV. She went through systematically accusing Sentebale and more or less Prince Harry of a number of things, including misogynoir, which is, against black women, and misogyny, and actually accused him of leaking to the press, more or less, even though, of course, he despises the press. And a number of other things.
She made quite a barbed comment there, didn't she, about people who would protest about the press, then using it.
Using the press. Yeah. And she said, I'm brave. I've whistleblown this situation, and this is how I'm attacked. More or less accusing him of gaslighting. It's a really cutting statement. I was so shocked. And what's really worrying for Harry and Sentebale and Prince Seeiso, who might want to defend themselves, is that she's mentioned the law twice in the statement. And she's clearly, as an ex-lawyer, got a very good grasp of the law and really feels like she will be vindicated in this whole process. And the statement is just pinpoint accurate on each systematic thing she's accusing them of.
Well, the resignations this week weren't really the first signs of trouble at the charity, were they?
No, there's been a number of resignations recently. You've reported on a couple. I reported on Andrew Tux, he's known as Tux to Harry, leaving the charity. And it's sort of to do with sponsorship. So Tux was involved in raising big sponsorship money. And he left the charity at a time when the accounts were showing a big dip in the sponsorship income. And the sponsorship income comes from Harry doing these star-studded polo matches, among other things. And it seemed as though Harry had sort of stopped doing those or giving his star power to the charity. And soon after I wrote this article, he then turned up for the first time in 6 years in Lesotho. And it seemed to me that somebody had said to him, look, you need to really put some star power behind it. And he might not have enjoyed having that conversation. That's what I was hearing at the time. That's what we reported. And Andrew Tux left it around this time. So the signs have been there for about 6 months.
Interesting. Now, Rebecca, you wrote some interesting analysis, didn't you, looking back to your own conversations with Prince Harry about this charity?
Yeah, I mean, the story broke late on Tuesday evening, and I was sitting there thinking, shall I go to bed or shall I write about this? I decided to write about it because I've
Naturally.
actually...
Surprising.
Yeah.
He chose not to get some rest.
Yeah. But also I've been out with him to Lesotho 3 times now, from when he founded it in 2006, and I've spoken to him about it. And I think it's important to emphasise how crushing a blow this will be for him, because it was such a big passion project for him, set up in memory of his late mother. Sentebale means forget-me-not in the local dialect. And I remember, as I said in my story, I was in 2006 when I was out there when they launched it. And this was the time that Harry was 21, he had the reputation as the kind of playboy party prince. And I remember sitting there on this earthy bank, I was tapping away on my laptop, and you have a feeling that someone is just watching you. I kind of turned around and Harry had crept up behind me and he was looking over my shoulder at what I was writing. He said, I always want to see what people are writing about me. And I slapped my laptop down. But actually then he started talking about Sentebale and how much it meant to him. And you could really hear this kind of almost slightly desperate determination in his voice that he really wanted to prove his naysayers wrong with it. Yeah. Which is why what has happened now, to be accused, him, the trustees, the charity generally, of racism, of sexism, of misogyny, of harassment, of bullying, that is going to be humiliating for him at a time where he quite clearly doesn't want to be involved in Meghan's merchandising. He wants to be setting himself out there as a kind of global philanthropist, and that is not a good look for him at all.
Obviously, we should add that sources close to the Duke have pointed out that he's not being scrutinised personally in any legal action. Yeah. And of course, it isn't the only African charity that Harry has links to that's had its controversy, is it?
Well, as we know, actually, colleagues on the Mail on Sunday have done some really good work on this, in African Parks, which is another charity he has a role with. Not one he's founded, it's one he came into, but they've faced very serious accusations of effectively riding roughshod over the livelihoods and wishes of local communities in Africa. I mean, there's been some accusations of rape and torture. So again, not a very good look.
It's interesting, Richard, isn't it? Rebecca touched on this, but he's recently shown he's not keen on going down commercial lines with the same vigour that Meghan has. But so if he sees himself as a more charitable figure, philanthropic, well, I mean, this is not a good look, is it? Where does he go from here?
I mean, let's be clear. I mean, Dr. Chandauka's claims, they will be deeply painful for Harry. They really will sting. I mean, just think about it. The idea was that this year is sort of Meghan's year to make money. My goodness, we've fed up of her already. We're only in March. But Harry would be able to concentrate on his charitable works, which were mainly Invictus, Sentebale and a few other things. I mean, even his paid work, remember what that is, Better Up, that's him talking about mental health and this sort of thing. So, to be accused of racism and misogyny, I mean, my goodness, what goes around comes around. Remember that is the toxic accusation that they were levelling at the royal family during the Oprah Winfrey interview. So, I really do think that that's going to come back to bite them.
Well, that's been mentioned in Richard Kay's piece in today's paper, hasn't it? The irony of the racism claims. And Charlotte, Richard Kay calls this incident catastrophic for the Duke. Where do you think he goes from here?
I do really worry about where he goes from here because, like you said, this was his original sense of purpose. When he set it up at the time, he was a little bit lost. And this was his thing that was going to drive forward his sense of purpose. And we know that in recent years, he's spoken about his sense of purpose a lot, hasn't he? And without this, I mean, he will have Invictus, as you say, but I just worry that he's going to need to throw himself into something else pretty sharpish to give himself that joie de vivre that this Sentebale originally gave him.
Or does he wait and stick to his guns and wait till this whole mess is clarified? And
I was going to say, in the statement that Harry and the others put out, it was sort of left almost like we could come back. It was, we are stepping down. But the problem is that they agreed with the whole moves of the charity, which was to make it much more African-based. Instead of being polo matches in Britain to raise money. They wanted it to be very much African focused. So that won't change. So, with him living in America thousands of miles away, it does make it difficult, I think.
And you've got to ask yourself, I mean, I know COVID was an interrupting factor, but if it did mean that much to him, why, when he went out and visited in October last year, had he not been for 6 years? And it's a question I ask in my piece on Mail Online this week also. He'd never taken Meghan there, and I think if that was such a big part of his life still, why wouldn't you want to show your wife this side of your personality and what drives you? So I think there's very big questions.
I want to find out. I want to find out more about Meghan's role in all this, seriously, because I know that Charlotte had this same that we both had in the sort of the diary world when it came to polo, which was a big thing for William and Harry. They used to play in polo matches that would raise money for lots of different charities. They'd raise thousands of pounds. But we were told at the time that, when Meghan arrived, she said, what are you doing, wasting your time playing for these little amounts? You should be raising, like $1 million per match. And she really sort of raised those expectations. So I do wonder if her expectations also have had an impact. So we'll see what comes out.
Yeah, I was just remembering that polo match because she asked for £1 million at the time, and from Audi, who was sponsoring that polo match at the time, and Audi had a really great relationship with the royal family at the time and gave the royals loads of cars, and they in return would play polo matches and bring attention to Audi, and then royal watchers would buy Audis, especially those sort of very smarty party women that they were running the circles, all that sort of yummy mummy polo female circles would buy these Audis. When Meghan came on the scene, Audi pulled out of that deal because it was much less official than Meghan wanted it to be. It was much more of a symbiotic, sort of chummy relationship with the royal family. When Meghan tried to formalise it and throw big numbers out there, Audi just backed away and said, we're not interested anymore. And it really, really hampered Sentebale because they needed that money, and that was their biggest sponsor at the time. And it's never quite been the same since, I don't think.
Well, Dr. Chandauka has shown that she's prepared to speak out, so I suspect we may hear more from her.
I think we will, and we'll be reporting it here, of course. Now, more news on Meghan, Rebecca. I'm putting this in quote marks. We heard about from the entrepreneur this week, didn't we? The entrepreneur.
The entrepreneur, not an influencer.
Got it. Yeah.
Let's explain. So obviously this week, I think to most of our surprise, I think we thought it was going to come at some point, but maybe not quite now, that Meghan decided to launch herself as someone who was going to start promoting products on her Instagram site. So she launched it with 32 items of clothing accessory, ranging from, a £99 raincoat from Uniqlo, but also, a dress notably called the Windsor dress to over £1,000.
I did notice that, yes.
You noticed the royal studs as well, the ear studs. There was 25 beauty products as well. And basically she set herself out as one of these kind of affiliate merchandisers. So if you were to click on the link on her Instagram site and bought a product as a result of it, she will get a percentage of the profits, which is meant to be between about 10 and 30% depending on the item and the deal she has. So it's pretty nakedly commercial. She's doing it with a platform called Shop My, who said that some of their most successful clients are earning in excess of $1 million a year. So it's not small
I'm
money.
on Shop My, and I'm not one of those successful clients.
Are you?
No.
I'll have a look though at your stuff though, Joe. It's another very, very commercial venture from her.
Well, it is, and Meghan will be under scrutiny, Charlotte, won't she, for not only what she's selling, but how she's selling it.
Yeah, I think it's this affiliate links thing in terms of how she's selling it. So the difference between her and, say, Gwyneth Paltrow, who's got Goop, is that Goop is this massive website. It's a boutique. It's not far off Net-a-Porter, really.
I mean, it did start small, though, and grew.
Yeah, it started small and grew. I mean, she's starting very small, Meghan, because, as you say, there's only 32 products, aside from the makeup. But also, I just think it's extraordinary how she's saying she's an entrepreneur. None of these products are her own products. They are other people's that she's selling, and she's siphoning off a little profit each time someone buys something. She'll take a few quid to herself. And on another note, I can't really believe she's selling those Sesta handbags, because the Mail on Sunday did an amazing expose about how much people are paid that made those handbags. You know, these women in Africa are earning pennies. You know,
which brand is this?
It's called Sesta handbags.
Uh-huh.
And she's invested in it.
She's invested in it, and it's great marketing for her because it's made by women in Africa. But she's not paying them as much as she'll be earning. She'll be earning, 100 quid a handbag from selling them on this website. I mean, that's a guess at that number, but a substantial sum. These women are working for a week for £10. And to think that she's listed that handbag is just inviting trouble, I think.
What I find so striking is that, don't you remember we had all these stories about how Meghan was going to be an ambassador for Dior or Chanel or something like that?
Oh, I think, was that not speculation though, rather than...
Sure, it was speculation, but at the time people thought it was quite informed, and I think it was, perhaps Meghan's agents weren't unhappy to see that sort of speculation.
Yeah.
But none of that came, and instead she's just trying to get commissions from people, buying things she's worn.
So here's where I'm confused, not for the first time. So it's like, we've got the affiliate links. Has this got anything to do with the merchandising apparently coming with As Ever?
No, nothing.
Right,
That's the point. This is not like Goop, where
because you were saying to me she doesn't make anything, but I know she's made that damn jam, which I still can't buy.
But that'll be a different website, I think. So that's on
Right.
the asever.com website.
Okay.
Whereas this is a link on her Instagram bio that if you click on it, it presents you with 32 products that you can buy, and she will pocket some of the money that you pay for that product. So it's a commission-based website.
Exactly, and interestingly, she kind of launched it saying, as so many of you asked, I will do this for you. Here's a little shopping start the week, kind of Happy Monday type thing, more to come. So
we're saying, please, Meghan, tell us what you buy.
Well, maybe some people are.
I guess so.
There must be.
Look, she had a mildly successful career as an influencer before, so I can see it working. And she does have 2.6 million followers, although, how many people of those are genuine followers, the rest are rubberneckers, I don't know. But, she obviously must think there's a lucrative market in it for her.
Rubbernecker here. Rubbernecker.
Well, I should say my wife made one of her recipes for tea.
Oh, really?
For her, I didn't actually have it, but it was bananas covered in granola and then sort of frozen berries on top. So it was very nice. So
And was that the reinvented banana split?
Reinvented banana
Must have
split.
taken hours.
So there you are.
Well, Meghan won't have welcomed comments, will she, Richard, from a major media figure who worked with her and accused her of being adrift on facts and reality. What's this all about?
This is the long-serving editor of Vanity Fair magazine, Graydon Carter. He's quite a character. And he has been recalling that the magazine cover really that announced Meghan. It was the first that lots of people had heard about her. What was it? Mad about the boy?
I'm wild about Harry.
I'm wild about
She's
Harry.
just wild about Harry.
She's wild about Harry was
Yeah.
that cover. Anyway, what he said is that she was very unhappy about that. So he just thought it was absurd because, a minor actress like her to be on the cover of Vanity Fair, they'd chop off their left hand to be on that
from my
magazine
memory,
cover.
he needed to be convinced as well that she was a cover.
Yes,
So, yeah.
he wasn't sure about it. He was persuaded to put her on. And then what happened? She moaned. She said that, I thought it was all going to be about my charity work. He was thinking, you are adrift from reality. No one cares about your, so-called charity work. They just want to know about Harry. But anyway, I think it went down very badly with the palace, I think, that interview, quite rightly. So
I was surprised when it arrived on my desk, I remember. Yeah, just for that reason.
I think some of us, even back then, thought, this could be trouble.
Well, of course, this is at the same time that, the palace was saying to journalists, look, this is an important relationship, lay off, don't write things about
give them their
her.
privacy.
See, exactly.
Yeah.
And then suddenly she appears as a cover girl.
And not just the palace, we had that very angry statement from Harry as well, lay off my girlfriend kind of thing. So at the same time, courting Vanity Fair. It was very intriguing.
Now, Rebecca, we did hear a first glimpse of her new podcast, didn't we? And it's safe to say she's unlikely to be dishing any royal secrets, or am I wrong?
Yeah, it's called Confessions of a Female Founder. It's an 8-part series that's coming out on Lemonada Media next month in April. And she released a 2-minute teaser trailer. Now, I'll be honest, this is not my kind of normal listening fare anyway, but I'll be honest, it did sound very dull to me.
Oh, I thought you were going to... The way you said that, I think you were going to say, I'll be honest, it was more exciting than I thought.
No, because I mean, we don't know who the people she's interviewing. Yes, so she's teasing them up as women who've started with very small ideas and created billionaire businesses.
Okay, well, I think a lot of people would probably want to learn from that.
And there could be in that, depending on who these women are, merit. But, you know, the clip that they released is her saying to them, look, this is not a shark tank, this is like a dolphin tank, this is going to be very friendly waters for you. You know, there's a bit of a girl chat in it, she says. She started quizzing one lady about her relationship status. So I'm not really quite sure. I think, as I've said many times with her ideas, what this is meant to be and what the target audience is.
So it's about essentially how these female entrepreneurs grew their businesses.
Supposedly, yes.
So again, it's almost like she's positioning herself as an entrepreneur when she isn't one.
No, and she makes very, very clear in this. She said, as a woman who's just starting her own business, I am getting all these ideas from them, and we're going to impart the wisdom to you.
I get that.
So look, let's see. I think Richard and I will probably take one for the team and listen to it.
No, I think
I wrote it in my diary.
We'll just make you listen to it, Richard, and you can tell us all about it. How does that sound?
I did write it in my diary, I have to say.
You get the big bucks.
That sounds good.
You can do that. Now, she does seem to have found a new friend, doesn't she, Richard, in a former Oscar winner?
Yeah, this was quite a surprise because there'd been lots of articles sort of reading into Gwyneth Paltrow's posts online. And obviously she's a neighbour in Santa Barbara. She has her own lifestyle, successful lifestyle company with Goop.
Mildly successful, yes.
And she's been doing some videos about, in her kitchen, making breakfast and this sort of thing. And people were wondering, has she been making kind of sly digs at Meghan? So anyway, when Gwyneth did one this week, who should pop up but Meghan herself? So Gwyneth Paltrow had invited her over, and it was quite amusing. So
do you think that was like just a really deliberate riposte to all this speculation?
I think, to be honest, I think Gwyneth Paltrow actually just has quite a good sense of humour. So I think she just thought it would be funny, which it was. Whether it leads to anything, I don't know. I'm sure that Meghan is crossing her fingers, thinking, please, can Gwyneth help me?
And the irony, they did that overnight on the day that the Sentebale story broke. So it was all completely overshadowed, certainly in the UK media, by the scandal over Sentebale. So I don't think it really had, certainly in the UK, the effect that they maybe wanted.
Oh, well.
What do you think, Charlotte, of this report that's going around that, if Meghan's life as an influencer / entrepreneur doesn't work out, this story that Netflix want the Sussexes to make a new, very personal documentary. Does that sound right?
Yeah, so the reports that have leaked out, which I have to say have been denied, but often things are in the infancy, is that Netflix want them to talk about Princess Diana next. And there's been some talks about Prince Harry doing a documentary about his experience, obviously growing up with Princess Diana and her death. The report said really clearly that Meghan wasn't going to be involved in this, which I thought was really interesting and actually made me feel like it was probably a true story, but then it got denied. But what I would say is, despite the denial, it seems unlikely that it didn't come up in any of these Netflix meetings, from one side or the other, that maybe Diana could be a subject matter for their documentaries, because let's not forget they've been scrabbling around for ideas for Netflix all this time. They obviously did the big, talk about, life in the royal family.
I think, just to stop you, so the story is that this would be about the death of Diana, this documentary.
Yes, so this article said that the death of Diana would be the next subject for the Netflix deal. So the Netflix have this deal with Harry. He's got to produce a number of documentaries with Meghan, and one of them could be Diana. And given that Harry suggested an interview with Putin, I wouldn't be surprised if this was one of the ideas. Some pretty crazy ideas obviously came out in those early Netflix meetings. So it seems reasonable to suggest that Diana and her death was the subject of a potential documentary. However, at the moment, that's being denied. by Team
and
Sussex.
I think if he was to do it, it would bring him into massive conflict with his brother, because although Harry and William together cooperated, but I think with 2 documentaries about their mother over the years to mark particular landmarks. I know Prince William has made a point of saying, and if you remember, he stated it very obviously when we were talking about the whole scandal over her Panorama interview and how that was obtained. It was like, look, it really is time to let my mother's memory rest in peace now, and he's made that very, very clear. I mean, apart from joint charitable initiatives like the Diana Awards, which I think are very positive ones, they very much want to park that side of their mother's life.
That's why I thought the original article had a ring of truth to it originally. Famous last words in diary circles, ring of truth. But the fact that they very much said that Meghan wouldn't be involved made me think, if William has in any way sanctioned this, he would only do so if Meghan's not involved. So if it was up for discussion, maybe Harry would have said, look, don't worry, it's just going to be me doing it because it's my mother's memory. But yeah, it's been denied, so we don't know.
Let's see. Oh, hear that? What do I hear? It is time to highlight an unsung royal hero of the week. I believe you're doing the honours, Richard. Who are you nominating?
I'd like to nominate Princess Beatrice. She's not a working royal as such, but she has taken on a few patronages. And in this case, it's a new one for a charity that deals with premature births. The birth of her second daughter with her husband, Eduardo, Athena, was premature, so she knows all about it. And this week she chose to speak out about what that was like and her fears and that sort of thing. And she's also done something with a friend of hers to try to raise money. It's something for baby showers. Not a very British thing, by the way, quite an American concept. But it's a sort of tablescaping thing to have fancy sort of how do you say, kind of decorations for a baby shower party, and it's all to raise funds for this charity. So I think it's a very good project.
Nice.
And very interesting to see her getting involved with more patronages.
Lovely. And it was quite a personal story from Beatrice this week, wasn't it, Rebecca?
It really was. I mean, I think it's notable it was in Vogue and she wrote it, so there was a strong element of control about it for her. But she wrote in very moving terms about how she and Edo were told that it was very likely that Athena would be premature, and that kind of horrible primeval fear as a parent to be, that something's happening with your body that you just can't control. And she obviously has been through, a really difficult experience, and happily has come out the other side, and her daughter appears, lovely and happy and healthy. But yeah, I thought she did it in a very elegant way, and spoke from the heart.
And it's a topic that really breaks the hearts of so many people and doesn't get discussed that much.
Absolutely, because it's the kind of issue that people sometimes feel awkward about discussing with even their friends. Do you want to talk about experience of baby loss or premature birth? And so I think fair play to her for doing that.
Good unsung hero, Richard. Well done. Well done. Now, on to Beatrice's sister now. Princess Eugenie turned 35 this week, a mini milestone, if you like, and to mark the occasion, here are some of our favourite pictures of her. wishing Princess Eugenie of York a very happy birthday from all of us here on Palace Confidential, and a reminder that Rebecca's trip inside Kensington Palace will play straight after this. Click here for that, and just time to say now thank you to Rebecca, Charlotte, Richard, and to you for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.